Curious about what are environment variables and how to use them in your programs? No worries, today all the questions are going to get answered, as today you're going to learn about environment variables and how to use them in your Python programs. Hello everybody, I'm Saion Gupta, founder at 10x Coder Kids, and let's get started. We'll test everything out in our terminal only. So first of all, you need to know what are environment variables and why do we need them. So basically, certain applications may have to make use of variables that have been initialized outside the program itself. So that are not initialized inside the program but outside the program itself. But instead, in the environment, the source code is supposed to get executed in. Right, so in wherever your source code will be executed, there you can define certain variables, and from there only you can access all your environment variables, right? So some programs require this. So when you create high level programs, for that you have to learn about these environment variables. So first of all, I'm going to show you how to exactly create an environment variable on the Linux machine. These commands that I'll show you are specific to the Linux machine. So if you want to follow up with me, do have a Linux machine. If you don't have one, you can. There are certain other commands that can be used instead of the commands that I will use right now. Right, so you can search for them. So I'm gonna stick with the Linux commands only. So over here, to create an environment variable, what you have to use the export command, right? Export, and then you have to do env equals to dev, right? So you have to export env environment. So we are creating like our first environment variable, and its value is dev. We enter this, and it has created a variable in our environment. So now if I like do echo to see the value of our environment variable, you'll just give echo, and then we'll say dollar, right? So dollar indicates that we are going to access an environment variable. So we are going to say env. So this is telling us access the value of your env variable and just show it using the echo command. Now if I press enter, you'll see its value that was dev is coming. But this is a terminal session specific. To see that into action, if I over here, I've opened another terminal, and now if I do echo, and if I do $env, you get nothing over here because the environment variable does not exist right now, right? So it is terminal specific, right? It is like for a certain session, using the export statement, when you create variables, those variables are created for your session only, right? When the session ends or a new session starts, there you won't be able to find your variable that you created, environment variable that you created. So now you saw how to create an environment variable using the export statement, and how to access it using the $sign and then the variable name. Now you're gonna see how you can see all the environment variables that are there existing. So there are some predefined environment variables in the that are there. So to look at all your environment variables, you just have to give the export statement. Now you can see over here, you are getting a lot of environment variables that you can access. So there's a clutter rhyme module variable, there's a color term variable, there's a dbus session bus address something, there's a default path variable, there's a desktop session variable, environment variable, right? There's a display variable, there's a env variable, and this is the variable that we created. There's a gdm session variable, its value is Ubuntu, right? You can see the values also, those are after the equal sign. There's a GJS debug output, okay, we'll just leave this GJS. There's a GNOME desktop session ID, right? There's a GNOME shell session mode. There is a GNOME terminal screen. There's a GNOME terminal service. There's a GPG something, GTCam module something. There's a GTCam modules variable, and here is our home environment variable. That is that contain its value is a path to our home, right? Home directory. Now over here, one thing to show you, all the values that will be there of our environment variables will be the type string, right? So all the values of our environment variables will be of type string, right? So over here, as you can see, there's 2 over here. Still it is in quotes, that means it is a string. So I'm config phase is 2, that is in string. Language Indian English, right? I think this is Indian English. And then there was lang and language. Okay, so these are some predefined environment variables, right, that we have. Pretty cool. So I showed you how to see all the predefined environment variables and the environment variables, all the environment variables together that you created, right? So now if you want to use these environment variables in Python, how you can do this? You have to first go to your Python 3, right? So first we'll start Python, and then you will have to, so what we'll have, we need to import OS, right? And then you can use os.environ mapping object, right? So using this mapping object, you can access all your environment variables. So a mapping object where keys and values are strings that represent the process environment. For example, environ home. So you saw the value of home, right, is the path name of your home directory, and is equivalent to get env home in C. So in C you will have to use the get env method. In Python you will have to import the OS library and then use all your environment variables. So this mapping is captured the first time you include the OS module, right? Typically during the Python startup as part of the processing site.py or any like file name.py, right? So changes to the environment made after the time are not reflected in os.environ. So once you have imported OS, the changes if you make in your environment variables outside would not reflect in your Python program, except for changes made by modifying os.environ directly, right? So now you'll learn how to use this os.environ mapping object. First of all, what you have to do, you have to import OS, right? So you have to import OS. Next you have to do env var, so you can name your variable anything. I'll just say environment, right, is equals to OS, and then you have to give environ, right? So once you have imported OS, now your environ object has been initialized, right? Mapping object has been initialized, right? Now you can access your environment variables. For example, I want to access the env environment variable that I created. So now its value has been saved in env. Now if I print the value of env, you'll see that it will show us dev. It is showing us dev as the value we set, that the value that we gave to env was dev outside, right? So pretty cool stuff, right? So this is very cool stuff, but this is not the best way to do this. For example, I do env is equals to os.environ, right? And then if I say that this was, like, you can say env1, we are trying to access an environment variable that does not already exist. You will see that we get a key error saying that it does not exist, right? So we cannot access it. So a better way of doing it will be env is equals to os.environ.get. So using the get method will be a better way. It won't crash your program, it will just give you none if it cannot find any environment variable defined. So for example, if I try to access env1 now, this won't throw us an error and crash the program. It will just save none in env. If I print env, then you'll see that you'll get none over here. Instead of crashing the program, it gave us none. So pretty cool. So now you can also do there's one more power of get, that if you do not find the variable existing in your environment, right? So in your if the variable you want to access is not there, right? It is not defined there, right? So if it is not defined, then we can give a second parameter over here saying what value should the get method return if it cannot find the variable that we want to access. Over here I'll say we should return 1 2 3, right? So this is saying that if it does not find env1, then return 1 2 3, else if it does find it, then give us the value of env1. Now if I print env, we'll get 1 2 3. At the start I mentioned that there was the values of our environment variables are always strings, but now over here if I check, if I do os.environ dot get, and if I say env1 and 1 2 3, okay, we'll surround this in print. You see, oh, okay, so you see 1 2 3, but if I show the type of this, you see it is class int. That's because it is not creating an environment variable. It is just saying that you should return this value. It is not creating an environment variable over here, right? It is not creating any variable environment1. It is just saying if you do not find the variable environment1, return this value, right? And that is a numeric value. That's why we can see its class int. Now I'll also show you the full os.environment mapping object. So I'll just print os.environ. So you can see all our environment variables that we saw above are coming in os.environment, right? Pretty cool, right? And another way of instead of giving the default value, if you want to handle, you can also use the try catch statement to handle the key error, right? But this is just a more efficient way and an easier way to do. So now you'll see how to export or overwrite environment variables. But just to make you clear, it won't outside create or override any new variables or override any existing variables. What it will do, it will just override or export variables for our Python program. It will not do it outside. I'll give you a demo of it also. So if I do os.environ, and then because this is just a mapping object, we can create new variables or attributes like we do normally in a dictionary. So if I do env1 is equals to, now we say dev1. This is good. Now if I just try to do print os.environ env1, right? I'm not using the get method, I'm just using this normal method. You can see dev1. But you must be thinking, now it has created this environment variable outside also, where we just call the export statement and we saw all the variables. No. So if I do exit, if I do export now, you will nowhere see env1. That's because the environment variable that was created was specific to this Python program that was there, right? So if I go back to Python 3, the environment variable that we created was specific to this program over here. If I import OS now it is directly creating the os.in, it is initializing the os.environ object and giving and adding all these environment variables in its mapping object. Now if I try to access, if I try to do print os.environ, and if I try to do env1 that we created in the previous Python program, you'll see we should get a key error. That's because there is no env1 for this Python file, right? So now over here I'll also show you how to overwrite the values of environment variables. So it is the same way how you create environment variables. You just do os.environ, and we already have env is equals to dev2, right? So now it will change the value of env to dev2. Now if I print os.environ env, right, you'll see we get dev2. But again, the concept above that I showed you, that when creating new variables, it does not add a environment variable outside and is just for specific for your Python program. The same applies to when changing values of your environment variables that already exist. Over here for the Python program, env's value is changed to dev2. Outside, if I check its value, it will still be dev. So now you can also check that if an environment variable exists or not, and there are certain ways of doing that. First of all is the try catch. So when you try to save a variable, like you try to do env equals to os.environ and something env1 for example, over here you can surround this in a try statement, and you can say try to save the value of the environment env1's value, try to save it, but if it is not there, it will give us a key error. So try it. If it is not able to happen, it will go into the catch statement and it will catch the error, and then you will know that the environment variable does not exist. But again, this is not such a great way. Another way is when you do env, you can check if environment variable exists, and you can do equals to env in os.environ. So it will go in our mapping object, check all the keys, and if any of the keys is equals to env, then it will give us true, as it knows that this environment variable exists. Else it will give us false. Over here it will give us true, as env already exists. So if I try to do now print os.environ env, sorry, if I try to env exists, you'll see true, as env already existed. Another way is that you can do env is equals to, and you can do os.environ.get, and you can say env. Next you can do if not env. So if you do not find, if it is like if not env is saying if the value of env is none or something like that, a false value, then just print that env does not exist. Over here it does exist. Oh no. Okay, so it did not go into the if statement only, but just ignore this over here. If it did go in the if statement, it would have printed this, right? If this was not there, right? So pretty cool. And finally, there's another way of how you can do it. You can do that env is equals to os.environ.has key, and in my point of view, this method is the most handy method. But the thing is, this haskey method is deprecated in Python 3 and you can no longer use it, right? So now this method is out of our list. And finally, we'll learn how to delete environment variables that were already created, but this is also specific to a Python program. Outside the environment variables will not get deleted. So if I do delete os.environ and any environment variable like env, so now if I try to do os.environ env, you'll see we get an error, key error, that env does not exist as it was deleted, right? And another way is that first I'll create this environment variable once again. Env is equals to dev, right? So it's equals to dev, and next you'll do wish.environ.pop. So we'll say pop it, right? So pop env, right? And if you try to delete an environment variable that does not exist using the del keyword, you will get an error. So to avoid that error, you can do os.environment.pop, right? And when you pop it, if it does not exist, just give us none. So what will happen, you'll see deleted, we'll create a variable deleted. So now if it is able to successfully pop env, it will just if it is able to successfully find env, it will delete it and we'll get the value of env in our deleted variable. If it is not able to find env, it will give us none. So now if I check the value of deleted, it will give us dev. So now what I'll do, if I try to pop a variable, now env does not exist. If I try to pop it, then you will see deleted value is, deleted's value is what we say, I think it should have been none. os.environ.pop and env and print deleted, right? Print deleted, so we get none. Pretty cool stuff. So if it found the variable, then just pop it and return its value. If you did not find the variable you wanted to delete, just return us none. Very cool, guys. And this was it, guys, for this video. I hope you guys liked the video. If you did, please don't forget to smash the like button and share this video with as many people as you can. Thank you guys. Bye. Stay safe, stay healthy, and keep watching my videos.